Did RFK Jr., the nominee to head the Department of Health and Human Services, commit voter fraud in New York? That's what a public interest group is charging Accountable.us in a new complaint filed with the New York Division of Election Law Enforcement, claiming that they have proof that at the time he voted in New York in November, RFK Jr. actually resided in California. That's going to make it a little trickier during his confirmation hearing to be the top or the head of our Department of Health and Human Services. Let's cover it right now on the Midas Touch Network and on Legal AF. Voter fraud. Why is it always the Republicans that are committing it? So Accountable.us put two and two together and figured out that various courts in New York have already, on an unrelated matter, judged that RFK Jr. does not live in Katona, New York, and should not be voting in Bedford, New York, especially in November of this past year, that he actually lives in California. Now, apparently, during a battle over whether he should be on the ballot when he once ran for office, it was established by the Albany County Supreme Court that he did not live in this bedroom of a childhood friend in Katona, New York, but lived in California. In fact, the court found in that case, after having litigated it, that the address that he listed is he's not qualified to call his own residence. In fact, even RFK Jr. admitted that he was just unpaid renting, never paid the rent, for a room in a home of a childhood friend that he only stayed there one night. That sounds like you're visiting somebody. That doesn't sound like you're able to vote in that state or in that polling district. Why does all this matter? Then I'll read to you from some aspects of the complaint that was filed by Accountable.us. Why does this matter? Because we have to continue to call out here on the Midas Touch Network and on Legal AF the abuse of power of Donald Trump and those around him every day, every minute, all the way through the end of his administration. Because if we don't do that, then we've given up. And from reporting and analysis and examination, you know what comes from that? Potential lawsuits, pinning them down, holding them responsible and accountable for their actions, and making them think twice about the next abuse of power. That's the position we're in right now in trying to box in Donald Trump and his minions. So here's what Accountable.us wrote to the Division of Election Law Enforcement, New York State Board of Elections in Albany. We're writing to request that your office investigate RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., for apparent violations of New York's election law by registering for and voting in the November 5th election from a New York residence in which he does not legally reside. And then they go through the New York statutes about giving false evidence, which this would count as that. According to public records, the letter continues, the complaint continues. Mr. Kennedy was registered to vote in New York from the address 84 Croton Lake Road, Katona. I've been to Katona, beautiful town, at the time of the November 2024 general election. The polling place assigned to his address was Bedford Town Hall, or Townhouse, Bedford Road, Bedford Hills. Mr. Kennedy voted by mail, and his ballot was received on November 2nd by the Westchester County Board of Elections. The issue of Mr. Kennedy's residence was recently litigated in New York courts as a core question in a dispute about his ability to appear as a candidate for president of the United States on New York ballots. In August 2024, the Albany County Supreme Court, that's our trial court level, found that Mr. Kennedy did not legally reside in his claimed New York address, that's the one in Katona, under New York election law. The address at issue in this case is the same one that the public records show he voted from in the 2024 November general election. Now, they don't go into where he does live, but there's been plenty of reporting that he lives in California. I don't know what was going on there with him, like renting, not renting a guest bedroom in a friend's house in Katona, New York, so he could be a New York resident. I guess he was trying to frame his presidency that way, and it was related to his being on the ballot in New York, which eventually it was found that it was improperly placed on the ballot. But, you know, this is voter fraud. And if it happened on the other way, if the Democrats committed it, the Republicans would take up the whole news cycle bashing us and talking about it. So we got to talk about this kind of stuff. It's not quid pro quo. It's not a payback. It's just that when a person's going to stand for one of the top 5 or 6 jobs in the nation at the executive branch level, and he's going into a confirmation hearing that hasn't yet been set. These are things that are going to be on his resume. I mean, if you were applying for a job and you had somebody charge you with potentially committing voter fraud, you don't think that come up in your job interview? It would. Well, that's what the confirmation hearing is, although more robust writ large. So I'm going to continue to follow it all right here on the Midas Touch Network and on Legal AF. We do this kind of analysis a lot. RFK Jr., of course, has his own issues. He's an admitted drug user, drug addict, continues to extol the virtues of having been on drugs for most of his life. We've got that going on. We've got his far-fetched conspiracy theories that relate to vaccines for children, COVID cures, unpasteurized milk. Let's get rid of polio vaccines. Let's bring back the OG diseases. He's got, for a guy who's not a scientist, not a doctor, not a researcher, doesn't work in the healthcare industry, he certainly has a lot of opinions, especially somebody who's ultimately going to have a lot of control over the Food and Drug Administration, especially when the person coming into the FDA, a doctor, sides with this non-doctor, non-science guy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at every turn. He's going to have a lot of influence, as we've said, on domestic policy for whatever reason. There's no real reported relationship between Donald Trump and RFK Jr. before Donald Trump felt he needed him in order to win the election. I don't know where this love fest came out of in the last several months, but for Trump to turn over vast swatches and swaths of the domestic policy to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is criminal. It's criminal. And it's these kind of confirmation hearings, which I also question why some of them haven't started yet. You can start them as early as the 3rd of January. I haven't heard or seen the likely schedule for any of the major nominees. I've even heard that some of the nominees, like Linda McMahon for Education Department, she's having trouble getting her paperwork in. And she was on the transition team. And she's having trouble getting apparently paperwork that she needs from the transition team that she was the head of. So that doesn't bode well for this process, which ultimately Susie Wiles and I guess the missing J.D. Vance, the great shrinking man J.D. Vance, is in charge of. But these are hard, pointed questions that need to be answered by RFK Jr., ultimately by Donald Trump, and will continue to hold their feet to the fire here on the Midas Touch Network. Completely independent. Legal AF, the YouTube channel. Help us get to 500,000 by our half birthday. We got another month and a half to go. We're doing really well over there only with your help and your support. Amazing new content over on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. And tune in with me, Michael Popak, new show on Midas Touch. Popak Live. It's far-ranging. I take questions on the live show. I give answers, and I don't take any prisoners. So join me 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Midas Touch Network for Popak Live. So until my next reporting on anything Legal AF related, I'm Michael Popak. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.